I ended up having to quit my job. I couldn't really leave the house because I was just so uncomfortable all the time. I didn't realize that that is exactly what my body was in for so long. And once I started to find tools that help regulate my nervous system, help to get me out of fight and flight and into more of like a regulated state, I noticed that's when I really started noticing a huge difference in my skin.
Hey everybody! Today I am here with the lovely Vienna. Vienna has a really inspiring story that you're going to get to hear in her own words. She had a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety around the process of healing and just dealing with eczema in general. And it wasn't until she started working on mindset and implementing the nervous system tools that she was able to actually go a lot deeper with her healing and see things really start to tick over when she started connecting those dots. And then that's where the magic happened. So yeah, with that being said, welcome in, Vienna. We're going to dive in. I want you to kind of take me back and share some of the challenges that you have with your skin and what life was like for you.
I've always struggled with eczema ever since I was a kid. It would get inflamed and irritated mostly during the wintertime when I was a child. And I remember using very minimal steroid creams when I was a kid. And then as a teenager, my flares became a little bit worse, and that was due to my environment. I used to work in a restaurant, so I would constantly be washing my hands, and that's where my eczema would be present the most. I used to struggle a lot with my hands as a teenager, but not it would come and go. It didn't really last too long. It wasn't actually until my 20s that I started to experience flares on a more regular and consistent basis, and the severity of it would increase year by year. And then as slowly I started noticing it would have an impact on my mental health because it would just get worse and worse each year, even though it would go away eventually. And it would just go away sometimes on its own, or if I was doing some type of homeopathic remedy, that would help too, but it would always come back. And then back in 2023, I had my annual flare up, but it wasn't like any other flare up I've ever had. This was the worst flare up I've ever had. My entire face was beet red. I lost hair on my eyebrows, on my eyelashes. They were like non-existent. The usual places my eczema would show or present would be my hands, my wrists, inner part of my elbow, occasionally my eyelid. And that was pretty much it. But this time around, I had it anywhere and everywhere. It was on my back. It was all over my arms. It was on my legs. It was on my neck and chest, my face. And it impacted me so much. I ended up having to quit my job. I couldn't really leave the house because I was just so uncomfortable all the time. It was very red and painful, more so than like dry and flaky. So that was a lot harder to manage. It almost actually at one point, I remember I took a picture. It looked like I had been like severely burned. That's how red my skin was. And this lasted for a good probably 7 months before I ended up finding the program. And that's what kind of led me to finding the program is I was just so desperate to find something to help. And yeah, but that's kind of like the history of my eczema.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is so common to have experienced it pretty severely in your childhood, and then it goes away, it gets a bit better, or it's manageable. Then it comes back with a vengeance. And for you, it sounds like it was just kind of slowly getting worse and worse and worse until you were like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. I need to find an actual solution. What were some of the things that you were trying? Did you go down the conventional path with your eczema to try to get some relief and work on it?
Yes, I went through so many avenues. Like I said, as a kid, I tried steroid creams
Yeah.
just to help manage the little patches. But then my mom did research, fortunately, when I was a kid, and so she found that the steroid creams were actually doing more harm than good for me, and so we just completely stopped using them, and I never went back to them. So we saw dermatologists, naturopaths, homeopathic remedies. I saw acupuncturists, Chinese medicine specialists, all kinds of specialists,
Mhm.
all kinds of treatments. I did acupuncture, I did lymphatic massage, red light therapy, salt rooms, any type of topical cream you can think of. I've tried, whether it was for like anti itch, anti red, or like for eczema specifically. I literally tried everything. And actually, I was thinking about this the other day. There was a point back in, I think it was 2020, like May of 2024 or something. And I was so desperate for relief. I remember seeing this girl on social media who had TSW, and she spent some time in Mexico at the beaches to try and like see if the salt water and the sun would help to like heal her skin. So I told my husband, I was like, maybe we need to like take a trip somewhere like where like it's tropical and see if maybe like the salt water would help. And so we went to Aruba, because we've been there before and we enjoyed it. And so we went to Aruba and I thought I was going to like be okay with it. But my skin was just so raw that there was no way I was spending any time in the salt water or like spending too much time in the heat. It just like I was so uncomfortable all the time. But it was during that trip that I joined the LYS program because I discovered it on that trip because I was just so desperate. I was just scrolling and I found Alicia on Instagram and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this?
Wow. I mean, I haven't heard of too many people who tried to seek out the solution of traveling to see if that could make a difference. Like 100% the fun, the salt water, that can be really helpful for people. And I can imagine because you tried so many things, you were just at your wit's end and
Mhm.
you wanted a proper answer. What was it like going to all those down those different avenues like homeopathy, the dermatologist, naturopaths, and just not really getting what you needed?
It was frustrating, but there was always, I don't know if this is just me or if this is anyone that's experienced eczema, but it's like you get to that point where you're just like, okay, I'm trying this and then it doesn't work. So then you get frustrated, you kind of lose hope a little bit until you discover something else in your research and then there's that little bit of hope that's like, well, maybe this is the one thing that I'm going to like finally get relief with. And so you try it and you like your expectations are high and you're like, trying to do everything perfectly and it ends up failing you too. And so for me, there was things that I've done in the past for my health, homeopathic remedies, or even like Chinese medicine remedies that have helped me. And so I just assumed that if I did whatever they suggested for my skin, that it would help. And unfortunately, it didn't. It made it worse. And it was frustrating. It was disheartening. I was down for quite a while. Honestly, that's probably when my mental health took the worst turn that it's ever taken. I was just so tired of doing all the research and trying to find a solution, trying to find relief, even from like the itchiness and the redness that I was so low all the time. I think my husband will tell you, it was probably like, it's not funny, but like 4 months in a row, I probably was like crying like on a daily basis. It was terrible. So even though like I was trying to seek out like all these different solutions, nothing was working. And it's just like slowly, I just started to decline. It's like, this is just so infuriating. I can't find anything that's supposed to help, even though all of these things are telling me that they're going to help me and they just don't.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. It really is so frustrating when you are taking your time and your energy and you're investing that in trying to find solutions and then just coming up short, coming up with things that maybe help a little bit and don't work. But yeah, it takes a toll on the mental health. You are not the first person to say that. I know that you're definitely not alone in experiencing that, and there's probably many people listening right now who can can really resonate with that. So oftentimes with eczema, you see the rashes on the outside and people think, oh, it's just a rash. It's, just something on my skin. But they really don't see the internal struggle that goes along with having those rashes. And they don't know how long you've been struggling with them. And trying
Mhm.
to find solutions is so exhausting sometimes. I can imagine that when you found us, there was maybe a little bit of hesitancy or skepticism. Was there at all?
Honestly, I was thinking about that question and I couldn't think of any. And I think it just goes back into what I was saying earlier, where you discover something new that you've never heard of, or that you see, like, you're like, oh, this kind of, maybe this is the next thing this could be it that could help my eczema. So, like, there's that little bit of hope. So, I wasn't really skeptical. It was more of like well, I haven't tried this route before.
Mhm.
And something, like I said, I found the program through Instagram, and there was just something about the video I saw of Alicia. She was just like so genuine. And she talked about eczema is more than just like a skin disease and that you need to find like, the root cause of it. And that was kind of the first time I heard that concept.
Yeah.
Even though I had seen doctors who do specialize in like finding the root causes of the problems, not just slapping a band-aid on your problems. But so it was kind of quite like resonated with what she was saying. And so there was that little bit of like, you know what, maybe this is gonna work. Maybe this is gonna be the one thing that helps me. So I wasn't really skeptical. I was more hopeful.
Amazing. Okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was really diving into the root cause piece and understanding how everything's connected that kind of captured your attention because you hadn't gone down. Yeah, you hadn't done
Yeah.
a program. You're kind of working with maybe individual practitioners, but nothing really like this. This was new. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy that you joined because obviously it was worth it. So let's get into while you were in the program. Yeah, what was it like being in the program, and what were some of your biggest and earliest aha moments that you had?
I absolutely love this program. I'm an introvert by nature, so I was a little nervous about the calls, the weekly calls, when I found out they were going to be like group settings. But that ended up being like my favorite part of joining the calls each week because you got to be a part of this community of people who totally understand what you're going through. And you can like upbuild each other. I remember I joined calls where like you're crying with each other because you can just fully understand what the other person's going through. You're celebrating others' wins, and then you're like trying to encourage them if they're experiencing challenges. And it's just that community aspect was something I didn't expect, and I didn't realize how much I needed that. That was probably one of the other things that took a toll on me before the program was that sense of loneliness because you can try and explain what you're going through to other people, but it's just hard with eczema. It's just a hard thing to talk about with people, and it's embarrassing, and sometimes you put that little shame on yourself because you're just so self-conscious about your skin. So that was really nice surprise with the program was that community aspect. And coming from somebody who's like, I'm an introvert, I don't like talking in groups, I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was my favorite part.
Oh,
Um,
no. So
but I
happy.
had quite a few aha moments. One of them that I literally keep in my head all the time was from a mindset call, and it was healing is not a linear journey. And that was like news to me
Okay.
because I always had it in my head that if I did like X, Y, and Z, then my skin would be healed and that would be that. It was very A to B process, but there were so many ups and downs, and there were so many like highs and there were so many lows. And when you have like a little bit of relief and then you go back to like a flare, sometimes you can get into those negative mindsets that maybe you had previously. And so it would like trying to remind myself that healing is not a linear journey. It's going to have ups and downs, and to accept it. And when I changed my mindset on that, I was able to handle those flares better. So there would be, I think back to like in the beginning of the program where like my skin was at its worst. And then I started to see a little bit of relief. And then I would get like a flare up that seemed to come out of nowhere. And like I would beat myself up mentally. What did I do? What didn't I do? And it was just like the whole mind game that comes with that. And then learning this little aha moment and trying to apply that in my life when that would happen again. I actually, one of my favorite memories is I remember I was in the kitchen and I was just having a rough day because my flare was bothering me. And I remember telling myself like, it's okay. Like this is going to happen. And I was able to like calm myself down, get myself into like a better mental position and just told myself like, it's going to be fine. Sometimes I would let myself cry for a little bit, or I would say like, today's a bad day, but we're going to make tomorrow a better day. And that whole shift just made it so much better. Just the difference in how like you view those ups and downs, because when
Yeah.
you're getting better, you feel great and you're like, I want to do all of the things I couldn't do. But
Yeah.
then when you come from that, you do have a little bit of a flare up because that's just part of the journey. It can be
Mhm.
disheartening and discouraging. So
Yeah.
reminding myself that healing is not a linear journey was a really nice aha moment.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for sharing that. I want to circle back to what you said
yeah.
about the community because that is something that I think a lot of people like yourself feel maybe a little bit intimidated by, like, oh, it's a group setting and people are they listening, like they're listening to my story, and maybe you feel a bit maybe shy to share because that's just how
Mhm.
it is in a lot of people's like personal lives with eczema. Like they just kind of want to hide away, not really talk
Mhm.
about it. But then you kind of immerse yourself in this community and you're like, wow, okay, these people understand me. And to be seen and heard and understood in that way, that
Mhm.
does something like that heals in itself. So I'm really happy that you touched on that piece because I think a lot of people, yeah, maybe have a bit of skepticism towards the reason it's a group program. And it's
Mhm.
just, yeah, there's so many amazing things that come from having that community and just uplifting each other, like you said, and just having that support on the bad days from people who really just fully and truly understand what you're going through. But I know you want to talk more about mindset, so we can get into that. But thank you for sharing more about like your first kind of aha moment around the mindset piece. and just recognizing how you speak to yourself about something that's challenging you has an impact on how you feel and on your skin. But please continue with your aha moments. I know there's
Oh,
many.
um, I think it was, yeah, I wrote it down here. Back to mindset. One of another aha moments was how much stress and a dysregulated nervous system can play more of a role in your health than you think.
Mhm.
And I remember, I know I've said this multiple times, but I remember a mindset call and you were sharing your journey with TSW in the program and how you said you were so diligent with like every pillar that we had to work on and that you were doing like everything to a T. Everything was perfect except the mindset pillar. You just were like, I don't really think I need to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
And then you said, once you didn't really start to see any type of results. And so you're like, well, let me give mindset a try. And I think you said you were like month 4 or 5 into the program before you started working on mindset.
Yeah.
And
Again,
how
for
much,
the
yeah, and how much of a difference that made once you started focusing on that. And I don't know why, but I took that to heart. And so that was like the first thing I just wanted to really focus on when I started the program. I was like, let me dive into the mindset program. Let me just kind of see what this is about because I didn't understand it at the time. I was, does this just like mean my attitude? Like, what does this entail? So,
Yeah.
and it was life changing. It was absolutely life changing. I didn't realize just how stressed my body had been, not only from trying to survive every day with the flare up that I had, but also like the mental stress and strain that it was causing and how that was affecting me physically too. And doing the breathwork calls with Brienne was absolutely life changing. It took like about a month before I really started to see like the benefits of breathwork, but I will never forget just how much breathwork helped. I remember I did a breathwork session, and the very next day I was getting ready to do an activity that is like normal for me, but always gives me anxiety. It's not like my favorite thing to do, but I have to do it. And I remember was getting ready to participate in the activity, and I like paused for a second, and I was like, why don't I feel anxious right now? Like I should be a ball of nerves. Like like my voice would crack, or I would be shaking, my heart would be racing, and none of that was going on. And I was able to get through that activity and actually enjoy it versus feel those like anxious feelings. And that has never happened before. It doesn't matter how much in the past I had tried to like calm myself down, tell me like it's fine, like you'll be fine. None of that helped. But the fact that because I had did the breathwork session the day before, I noticed a difference in my physical body the
Mm.
next day. Just was like that was mind blowing for me. And that showed me how important it really was to focus on regulating your nervous system and being aware of what your body is feeling at the moment and then trying to like navigate what can I do to get myself out of like a fight or flight state because I didn't realize that that is exactly what my body was in for so long. And once I started to find tools that helped regulate my nervous system, helped to get me out of fight or flight and into more of like a regulated state. I noticed that's when I really started noticing a huge difference in my skin. And then of course like my mindset, just being able to handle the flares better, feeling like not ashamed anymore of like what my skin looked like, being able to leave my house and not be self-conscious like oh my gosh like everybody's probably looking at how bad my skin looks and then giving myself anxiety because I'm just so focused on that. And yeah, that's what I literally fell in love with mindset. I cannot thank you enough for saying what you said because I don't know if I would have gravitated towards that pillar in the beginning had you not talked about like your experience with it and how important it really is in the healing journey.
Yeah.
Because it really is. I didn't think about it and now it's like all I think about. Now every day I'm always checking in with myself like okay, how am I doing today? And like or if I'm having a bad day, I'm like it's fine. Now my bad days aren't even like a full day. It's usually like maybe even like a half day and then I'm able to like somehow turn it around or even just like make it a little bit better and just those things make a difference not only like in your skin healing journey just in life in general and how you handle stress in general. And that's been absolutely life changing.
Definitely. Oh, I'm so happy that you shared that, and I'm happy that you were on that call. And I didn't want you to make the same mistakes I did. Not that it was a mistake, but or working on mindset early on is, I mean, there's a reason we have the mindset calls from the get-go in
Mhm,
the program, because we want you to work on it. And it is very common for people to be like, what is this pillar? How do I do it? That's
mhm,
how I felt. But it sounds like you were really open to it, and it's something that you really worked on. And
mhm,
what you were sharing as well, just about the brain skin connection and understanding like the things that you say, how you narrate things, like
mhm,
your body is listening to that. And it does have an impact on your nervous system, on your healing. Like, we always say in the program that your body hears everything that your mind says.
mhm.
And obviously, this is why we work on mindset. And it does have that direct correlation too to the nervous system, which I know was another really, really big piece for you in feeling that safety in your body. And it's also just so helpful to have like a team of people who understand like these different elements of eczema and healing and what's necessary and when to work on it. Having the mindset coach, having Brienne, the breathwork facilitator, like these things are essential because they do come together. But tell me a little bit more about the nervous system and some of the big wins there for you.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Well, besides I genuinely feel a difference, like, physically in my body as far as, like, stress and anxiety,
Hmm.
because I've always dealt with anxiety. I've always chalked that I'm just, like, an anxious person in general, but the fact that I'm able to, like, regulate it now and it doesn't, like, control me or control my actions as much as it used to,
Yeah.
that's a huge win. And then, like I said before, like, being able to handle the flares even now, being in the program for like 9 months now, and like having those moments where like my skin was like almost there and then having like a little bit of a setback, and being able to handle that with a lot less negative thinking, a lot less stress than I would have handled it in the past. That's a huge win because
Yeah.
the eczema is just always going to be there. And so if I didn't change my mindset and had that, I would just be in an awful place now still. It's just that you'd go down those spiraling thoughts and you beat yourself up. You're just all of those, like you said, all of those things, and they just affect your healing, they affect your body.
Yeah.
So being able to change that. So now I feel like I'm more capable of handling the flare ups and I don't feel as discouraged. I'm just like, it's part of the journey. And then noticing a difference. Like, I remember about a month or two ago, I randomly had a flare like on my eyelid, and that hadn't happened in a very long time. And I felt myself starting to like go down like a little bit of like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I caught myself and I reframed it and I completely changed how I was viewing it. And I was able to use the tools that I've learned and keep myself calm. And the flare went away within like a couple of days. It didn't even last. So
Amazing.
there was no reason to like stress over it. And even if it didn't go away right away, I knew that stressing about it wasn't going to help. So yeah, like those wins, I feel like are going to not only help me beyond like my skin, it's just going to help me in life. And so any stressful event that comes up or anything that's going to give me anxiety, I feel like I'm so much more capable of handling them than I have been in the past because
Yeah.
of mindset.
I'm so happy that you spoke to that honest piece about getting a flare,
Mhm.
because that is the reality with eczema. Like, we can heal it to a point, but obviously there's no cure for it. So it is a lot about managing it and understanding how your thoughts and how your stress affects that. And the fact that you're able to use your tools and bring a flare back down within a couple of days, like how freeing does that feel to know that you have that control?
Yeah, it almost feels like a superpower.
Yes, I
'Cause
love it.
when you don't have like those tools or you don't really know anything about that, you really do feel powerless. You can try everything and anything out there and it just might not help. So it was nice. And then it's also calming to not like feel that anxiety, to not feel like, I truly didn't realize how much stress was in my physical body until I was able to like get that under control. And I was like, wow, like my body feels lighter. And
Oh,
so,
that's incredible.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
not feeling that stress, that huge amount of stress when a flare happened it was just like calming. I felt like, wow, okay, I can handle this. Like it's fine.
Yeah, it is. I love that you said it's like a superpower, because obviously these tools, you didn't know that they existed before finding us.
Mhm.
And now you have them and you can use them. And when you can see them working, you're like, okay, well, great. There is no real reason to stay stuck in that chronic cycle of stress and that chronic
Mhm.
cycle being itchy and red and inflamed, and it just goes back and forth, and there's no clear skin. You have control over that now, which is
Yeah.
amazing. And obviously, these tools go hand in hand with, of course, finding and addressing the root causes. Are you happy to share about some of the other root causes you found apart from the stress and the mindset piece? Because that is a very common root cause. But yeah, what were some of your other root causes?
Yeah, that was actually my second favorite part of the program is I finally was able to like have answers
Mm-hmm.
to some physical things that were going on,
Yeah.
specifically in my gut. So for me, it seems the triggers for why I had such a bad flare were my nervous system and being stressed and not being able to manage that. And then like my gut health was very poor. I had a test done where I was able to have that figured out. And so I was struggling with H. pylori, a couple of infections. I had some parasites as well. So it was a very big group of like things that were just completely destroying my gut.
Mm-hmm.
And my practitioner Danielle helped me so much with that. The different protocols we went through. Everything was so like organized, and we tackled one thing at a time. And it just felt good to finally like have answers, like to not almost, because I feel like sometimes when you can't find the answers, you almost feel like you're crazy. You're just like, what the heck is
Yeah.
going on? Like I can't pinpoint because there's so much information out there. It could be your liver, it could be your thyroid, it could be your gut, it could be so many things. And when you don't have the answers, you're just guessing. And I know for me, like I was taking supplement after supplement on my own, just doing my own research, thinking like this would help, and it wasn't. And so having answers now was like, okay, now I know how, like with Danielle's help, I was able to, okay, now I know where to go. I know what to do, what not to do, what to stay away from. And as I'm sure many people who suffer from eczema know, you go through so many different types of diets too. I mean, you go through, I can't even tell you, I think it was anti-inflammatory diet, the Mediterranean diet, the no gluten diet, no sugar, no this, no that. And it was just so
Yeah.
like, it was such a process of elimination, but it was so discouraging because it's like, what can I eat? You can't eat
Yeah.
anything.
So true.
And
Yeah.
so learning how, that was another thing I really appreciated, learning how to, looking for, nurture yourself or find like being able to tackle nutrition. That was a big one for me
Yeah.
too. So like learning how to appropriately feed my body
Mhm.
to help in the healing process was really enlightening because my eating habits were definitely poor. And then learning just simple things. It wasn't even like complicated things. Like for me, one of the biggest changes was just trying to incorporate like a cup of vegetables in at least one meal a day. And that right there, that was a huge transition too. When I started doing that, I really noticed a difference in my gut and how I was actually feeling like physically in like my stomach area and like digestion and things. So like learning basic things like that and how much of an impact they can have,
Yeah.
that was really helpful too. I definitely
Yeah.
appreciated learning that.
Yeah, it is so helpful to have. It's tricky going from all these elimination diets and cutting out all these foods, not being able to enjoy anything. So frustrated, then you're still stuck with these rashes, to then actually having like a really personalized and tailored approach to healing, a personalized protocol, a person that's saying, okay, these are your root causes, this is what's happening in your gut. We're gonna go and do this, you're gonna eat this. And
Mhm.
just like giving you the answers essentially while you do the work to support your nervous system. So like your journey, like just the way you're summarizing it, you really worked on the nervous system and mindset early on, which is essential because that's going to allow our bodies to actually get in that state to heal. And then
Mhm.
we have a lot more success with going in and doing the testing and doing the protocols. So yeah, you've done a beautiful job in the program. And I just want to thank you for sharing all of your little aha moments and all of your turning points because it is obviously, yeah, you come here to get answers. You come here to understand like what's my root cause and how do I heal it, but the journey does become a lot more than just skin. Like once you're amongst it, you kind of realize like, look how good I feel when I incorporate these veggies and like how amazing this person also knows what I'm going through too. And like there's just so many
Mhm.
beautiful little, yeah, little like pearls of wisdom along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much just for sharing a bit about your journey and all the amazing things that really helped you. Vienna, I would love to hear a little bit about where you're at now. So, some of the biggest changes, you've kind of shared some of these, but the biggest changes that you've noticed in your skin, your body, your mind, and just overall, how are you different now?
It's definitely very different. Let me see. So my skin's not quite there yet, but it's definitely improved from where it has been. And I'm able to I'm able to like participate in like daily life again, if that makes sense. Cause
Yeah.
for the longest time, I was stuck at home. I lived in like my bathrobe because that was like the only comfortable piece of clothing that wouldn't irritate my skin. I was like not going out. I wasn't seeing friends. I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't working. And to go from like that, like isolation to now I can actually like enjoy life a little bit. And yeah, there's times where like I'd stay at home. Maybe like my skin isn't really doing the greatest and I'd rather just like not deal with that out in public, but it's nowhere near where I was before. And so like that alone, I like celebrate. I'm like, even though like my skin is still in the process of healing, my eczema isn't gone and it's still dealing with some things, it's still way better than when I first came into the program. And then with my body, I feel like my body is becoming healthier, having the knowledge now on like how to take care of my body better nutritionally. And what else did I have? Oh, I wrote down on the side, I struggled with I noticed like my digestion improved big time. I didn't have like a problem with like bloating or anything, but like my like sometimes I like had irregular bowel movements, and so that was something that was corrected, which was fantastic. And then for the longest time, I dealt with acid reflux. It didn't matter like what I ate, what I drank. It just would always bother me, and so that's been under control and almost like non-existent anymore now that I'm able to like take care of my body better. And then a really big health thing for me, because I've always had irregular period cycles. And I remember in my mid 20s, there was probably like 3 years or so where I was maybe getting like 4 periods a year. And ever since starting the program and getting things worked out and like focusing on nutrition and other things for my body, my cycle has been regular, like more regular than I've ever had in my entire life. And it's been like life changing because now I'm like, oh, okay, I know when I'm going to get it. I know like how it's going to go. It's not going to be painful, like extremely painful like it used to be. So that's a huge win for my body. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, this is where, like what I was saying, this is where the healing becomes so much more about your entire body and not just
Mhm.
skin. Like that's a very drastic symptom to to work with and to fix. So like that's huge. Having your period back after getting it 4 times per year.
Yeah, it was like my mid 20s and it was like probably 3 or 4 years. And I would skip months and I was just like, okay, this is my norm, I guess. I
Yeah.
just chalked it up to maybe like unbalanced hormones or something. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then having
that's a common root cause when you consider
yeah.
stress and all the other gut
Mhm.
dysfunction, like that can throw off your hormones for sure. So I'm
Yeah.
happy you found other root causes that aren't not just kind of skin related, like that. Yes, that plays a role, but I can imagine you're feeling a lot better in your body knowing that your period's regular again. That means
Yeah.
obviously you're in a healthy state too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely incredible, Vienna. That's so amazing. I'm so happy that you've had all of these changes. And I would also love to hear a little bit more about what you said around how previously, like you would maybe hide at home and just kind of isolate, your skin's kind of dictating what you do or don't do. How has that changed now with your eczema in the way of mindset and how you kind of narrate those social experiments or social experiences too?
It's gotten so much better and I absolutely love my mindset now towards how my skin is looking, especially when I'm out in public. But
Mhm.
for probably, I want to say like 5 or 6 months, it was a long time. I didn't go out or see anybody, do anything. I was home all the time. Like I said, I was just uncomfortable all the time. If
Yeah.
my skin wasn't really red and hurting or really itchy, it was like flaking. So I was just constantly flaking. And I could barely wear regular clothing, so I was literally wearing like the same like type of like soft, loose fitting cotton shirts and pants, or I would live in my bathrobe. And so it just was like so uncomfortable for me to leave the house to like just get dressed and do anything. So I didn't leave. I didn't see friends, and I had friends try. They'd be like, like we can come to you, and I would just be so self-conscious. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm not feeling up to it. And then on top of, I'm sure everybody goes through this too, your sleep is disrupted because you're uncomfortable. So I wasn't sleeping. So I would sleep random periods throughout the day. Sometimes I'd sleep during the day. Sometimes it'd be like a little bit at night. And so it was just so irregular. So I just never felt like doing anything, going anywhere, seeing anybody. And working on that was a pillar that was unexpected for me too, the fun and connection pillar. I was kind of like, I'm not a social person in general. So I was like, oh, maybe I need not even think about that.
Mhm.
But when I did focus on that, it really made a difference. Now I have a lot more confidence when I go out in public, even if my skin is red or like you can tell I've got something going on with my skin. I don't feel as self-conscious anymore. So like where I'm from now, it's getting to be summertime. And the past like year, I've always worn long sleeve shirts, even in the warmer weather. And now I'm able to just, I throw t-shirts on like it's nothing. And I just go out. I don't care what my skin looks like. I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. If somebody were to ask me, I would just say, oh, it's just eczema. Like not even self-conscious. As I want to say, I'm not as self-conscious. Sometimes I am, but like not enough to stop me from going out anymore. So I get to spend time with friends. They don't care, which is nice. I have like a nice group of supportive friends who just, they're just
Yeah.
like, if you don't feel good, that's fine. And if you do, great, come with us. And so getting to be more active and going out and not having that like sense of dread and anxiety of, oh gosh, people are going to be staring at my skin and like I got to
Yeah.
cover up. And so now I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm
that's,
so happy.
that's taken a lot of work though, because it wasn't like that at all at the beginning. But working on that has been really freeing because now I don't feel like I'm tied to my house. I don't feel like I need to cover up. Now I'm just like, you know what, whatever my skin's doing, it's what it's doing. And literally probably 99% of the time, nobody's noticing your skin.
Yeah.
And if they are, they're probably not going to say anything.
That is so true. I think that's something we can all, people with eczema can try to lean into a bit more. People are genuinely too busy with their own thoughts and their own things that they're not thinking about our skin the way that we think they are.
Yes.
But this is what it looks like to get your life back and to not have your eczema dictate what you're doing, what you're wearing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so evident how much you've worked on the mindset piece because even though, might experience a flare, you're going out regardless. Like you said, I'm going to wear those short sleeves in the summer. And if someone
Yeah.
asks, I'm just going to tell them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever think you'd get to that place with your skin?
No. No.
Oh,
Actually, and I'm pretty sure it was a mindset call where I don't know if we were workshopping something or if you were workshopping something with another member,
yeah.
but you had talked about how sometimes just addressing the elephant in the room made it like easier. So just like if you like, I think it was that work you were talking about where you just like went up to your boss and was like, look, this is why I haven't been doing my best or I haven't been here. It's because I have, I'm struggling with eczema right now. And I kind of just like opened the door to have a conversation. And more often than not, you're going to find people are like understanding, even if they don't fully understand what you're going through. So
Yeah.
that was kind of nice to hear that because then I was like, oh, I never even thought to just open that conversation up myself instead of like trying to dodge it or trying to
Yeah.
hide it or, hoping nobody asks me anything. So now it's just like an openness about me with it. So, if
Okay.
somebody asks like how I'm doing and I've had a rough week or something, I'll just tell them like, yeah, my eczema was, pretty bad this week. And it just
Yeah.
kind of opens that door, that conversation, and you feel more comfortable. And then that's led me to feel more comfortable to like do things and not be afraid to go out anymore, or hang out with friends or go in public. That
Yeah.
made a difference.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so happy that you touched on that because eczema it can be like a bit taboo for
Mm-hmm.
people who have it. People who don't have it are probably just like, okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got eczema. Most people are very
Mm-hmm.
open and willing to like listen and support you and take what you're saying at face value and not read too much into it. But it can be really, really tricky. Did you have a bit of resistance to opening up that conversation? I mean, obviously now you have no problem with it, but when you first started, how did you feel just like talking about your eczema to people who don't have eczema?
It was weird at first. I remember if anyone were to ask like how I was feeling, because they knew like I was going through health problems, but like they didn't really know what. And so I would just be like, oh, I've just been like in a flare up or I haven't been feeling well. It's very like generic. And
Yeah,
so once I did start to open that up and just, well, my eczema was really bothering me. And I would just go into detail about how my sleep is affected by that, how sometimes it's challenging to wear certain types of clothing because it irritates my skin and things like that. And
mhm,
then it was really nice. It like, again, it like that freeingness where I'm like, I'm not hiding a piece of myself anymore. I'm able to just share like, yeah, I'm dealing with this and
yeah,
this is what it's like. And most of the time people are intrigued. Most of the time they want to, they just want to know so they can know how to support you, which
yeah,
has been really nice to find out that people just, once they know, they're like, oh, well, how can I support you? Like, what can I do to help? So like there are times where like I've asked people to maybe go to like a grocery store for me to grab something if I just felt like I couldn't leave the house or something like that. Like little things, like just little things like that. Or like I've had friends like send cards just like, hey, I've just been thinking of you. Or they'll
Oh,
send me a text of like, hey, when you feel better, like reach out and we'll go do something. Or, so like starting that conversation opened the door to like, I feel like better quality relationships that I currently have. Like it just
yeah,
made me realize how supportive my friends and my family
yeah.
really are once I like, let them into that piece of
Yes,
me.
once you let them in. Yeah, I was actually
Yeah.
just about to ask you that. Do you feel like it's kind of strengthened some of your relationships? And it sounds like it has because you're letting
Yeah.
them be there for you and
Yes.
they wanna support you and then also just receiving that love, like, that's gotta feel good.
Yes. And I don't know if it's just me, but I've always had a hard time asking for help just in
Mhm.
general. And so that's been kind of nice putting myself out there like that, where I'm able to be like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a bad day or it's been a bad week or whatever. And then being like, I need this or I need this for support. And then having these people who are able to give that support has been really great.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, you are definitely not alone in that. No, I'm not asking for help. I can do it. I've got this. I can do it on my own.
Yes.
That is a classic trait of people with eczema. Very, yeah, independent, don't wanna put
Mhm.
anybody out. But you've experienced this now, but being able to reach out for help and be open about that you actually need it, like, that's a sign that you are healing. Because
Mhm.
for help is to slow down, it's to respect your boundaries. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there who probably feel that same way, like, I don't wanna be a burden, or maybe they feel like they're being a burden. But
Yes.
asking for help is genuinely one of the best things that you can do for yourself. But it isn't easy, like you've shared, like, it was a bit of a journey to get there, but now it's deepened your relationship with other people, and it's allowed you to focus on your healing too. So
Yeah.
proud of you for doing that deeper work, Jenna.
Thank you. And I have to say the program helped with that specifically because when you come onto the mindset calls, you get to share like a win or a challenge. And I always found it so hard to share my challenges because that feeling of like, I don't want to be a burden. And
Yeah,
what if somebody's having like a win? I don't want to bring anybody down. And it was like those calls that kind of helped me in that regard where I started to get more and more comfortable the more I would share my challenges. So then in real life, that transition to being able to ask people when I needed like support or if I needed help in some way, shape, or form. So like that was a big part too in getting me there.
that's huge. Yeah, it
Mhm,
does carry over. The work that you do here in the program, it carries over into real life, and you have the chance to actually practice what you're learning. And
mhm,
yeah, I'm so glad that you spoke to that and how the calls were helpful for you because it is that safe space. We come on
mhm.
the mindset calls, the practitioner check-in calls every week, and we open it up because we genuinely want to hear about how you're doing and we want to be able to workshop these things with you. And yeah, when you're open and you're open about your challenges, but also open to receiving support, you do take that with you into your personal life. And so I'm
Yeah.
really happy that you touched on that because yeah, again, just coming back to this is how the journey goes so much deeper than just healing your eczema. You're healing
Yes.
other parts of yourself too. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Vienna. So many amazing little nuggets of wisdom. But I want to check in and see, do you have any final words of encouragement for people who were in your shoes before finding the program, trying all kinds of different things to no avail? What would you tell them?
Yes. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. But the biggest thing I can say is do not give up. Seriously, do not give up because there were many, many times in the 2 years that I've been dealing with this really bad flare up where I would tell myself, I can't handle this anymore. I'm giving up. I don't know what to do. I can't do this anymore. And so much time went by where every day was a struggle. I was in pain or I was in some form of discomfort. I was lonely. And all of those things just kind of like added up and they just ate me alive. And I don't know what it was that kept me going, but I don't know. I kept going in some way, shape, or form. But the best advice I got was to take it literally day by day, minute by minute, even. And that has helped because, as anyone with eczema would know, your skin can change like on a hourly basis. You could be itching 1 minute and then the next you're fine or you're flaky
Mhm.
so taking it like slow, taking it minute by minute, day by day really makes a difference and can help you to not give up. And then finding a support system too. So, like for me, my husband has been an absolute dream as far as support. stepping up in areas I didn't think I needed help in. And so finding, even if it's just one person that you can like talk to, one person that can like cry to, then that makes a difference too. And that'll help you to not give up, because this journey is hard. It's hard, it's frustrating, and sometimes you feel like you're never going to get relief, but you can. It is possible.
Oh, amazing. I think those are some really, really valuable words of wisdom. Find somebody that you can be open and honest with so you're not bottling it all up and not giving up. And there was obviously something that kept you going. And I'm so grateful that there was something there that led you to us, that led you to having all these amazing aha moments and this really deep, beautiful healing. My last question for you, do you have any words of wisdom for people who are just starting the program now? Who are in the program,
Mm.
they found hopefully the solution, and embarking on their journey with Lovely Skin right now.
You're
Could
going to
be
love this program. I would say you're going to absolutely love this program. The people are so supportive and encouraging. The members that you're going to meet are going to just touch your heart, and you're going to feel probably for the first time that there are people out there just like you who are struggling, who know exactly how you're feeling. They know how little sleep you're getting. They know how itchy your skin is, and they know all of the ins and outs of eczema. And knowing that this is the first step into finding your root causes, which is so eye-opening, and then learning tools, actual like practical tools that will help you not only in your skin journey, but like in life in general. It makes a world of difference. And also, don't ever skip over the mindset pillar, because that is so important. You might not think you're stressed, but I promise you, if you have eczema, you're stressed.
love that.
So
Best words of wisdom of all.
yeah, don't ever skip it.
Thank you so much. Those are honestly, again, so valuable. And just, yeah, calling out the elephant in the room. If you have eczema, you are stressed.
You are stressed.
And we will help you figure it out. We'll help you work on it. And I mean, stress is inevitable. We are always
Yeah.
going to be encountering stress in our lives. Yes, it's not going anywhere, and it's not
Yes.
a bad thing. And a lot of it is meant to help you understand your values. And, stress is meant to protect you. But
Mhm.
there are certain situations that it's important to tune in and recognize, like, okay, I need to send these signals back to my body that I'm okay, I'm not
Yes.
threatened. It's how you deal with stress at the end of the
Yes.
day. To make a long story short, it is how you deal with stress, how you interpret it, how you think about it, and finding the tools to regulate your nervous system, which was a huge, huge part of your journey. And yeah, just thank you again for sharing everything and being so open and, wanting to inspire other people with your journey, because you have had an incredible journey. So thank you so much, Vienna. It's been amazing. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mandy.
you.